Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trek Canon. So, today we're going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks Room for Growth. Now, this was one of those filler episodes. They didn't really have a mission that, was finna cause, save the world or the galaxy or something like that. They wasn't trying to do any of that. This was one of those episodes that kind of was in the vein of, say, a Three Musketeers or a Goonies or something like that. It was kind of a small, self-contained adventure story for plot one. And for plot two, it was a story about relaxation and what helps people relax. Now, there was a lot of Easter eggs, which I'm gonna kind of go over towards the end of the video. But right off the bat, I like to say that this episode, it was okay. It was a nice filler episode. I thought that the messages that they were trying to convey, as always in Lower Decks, for some strange reason, the messages that they always try to convey are done very lightly. They kind of braze upon it just ever so slightly. All right. But the thing is that they say that it's a kid's show, and that's probably why they do that. But with the profanity, though, man, like the unnecessary profanity. Sometimes it's funny from when it comes from characters like Ta'ana, because, like I've said, that's her character. But when it's done just for the joke or just for, uh, um, shock value, or because they didn't have any other words that they could have used in there, i.e., with technobabble or something like that, some type of more Starfleet or Star Trek traditional way of speaking. All right, um, I think they went real heavy-handed in this episode with that. But on the planet, basically, the whole engineering staff beams down with the captain because they need to relax. All right, so that's the plot too. Now, let's talk about this little skimming that they did. Now, one of the things that went on in this episode is that they're dealing with the aftermath of basically what happened in the episode Masks from the Next Generation. All right, the captain had on I think it was the captain, but somebody ended up wearing the mask. All right, and they called it the Manuki mask. So somebody ended up putting that on, which started transforming the ship and the Cerritos, and basically they're dealing with the aftermath of that, cleaning up and everything like that, changing components. Now, the interesting thing is that in the episode Mask, I was under the impression that once the mask was removed and they passed the test and everything like that, everything was reverted back to the way that it was. So I'm gonna have to watch the episode Mask again to make sure, and if that is the case, I'm gonna put that down in the comments. But if not, I don't. It would be an interesting thing to whereas they would have to start redoing and repairing the ship. The thing is, though, is that I would think on that level of repair and component replacement that they would have to pull into a space dock or something like that to get into the nitty gritties of repairing and replacing those parts. Now, the thing is that on a ship we have, of course, Mariner, Boimler, and Tendi. And again, because of something that happened later in the episode, I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, they're there and they're basically trying to figure out how to change the lottery to get these four rooms on deck one. Okay, and they later find out that Delta Shift is after this same. They find out that Delta Shift is trying to change this terminal and got this way of going to get around the sensors and all that kind of stuff, so they won't be tracked and find out who did it if it's indeed something that they find out who changed this information on the terminal. So Beta Shift, which is Mariner, Tendi, and Boimler, and Rutherford, they all decide, all right, we're gonna beat them to it, and we're gonna put our names on it, and that's how their adventure starts. Now, of course, since you're evading sensors and all that stuff, it's gonna take you mostly through the Jeffries tubes, and they have their shenanigans and everything about the swamps and everything that they're coming across, and the vines, and them running into Delta Shift, and all of that types of things that come with it. And during the process, they're building up more and more camaraderie, more and more companionship because of this adventure that they're on. Now, down on the planet, we have Rutherford, we have the chief of engineering, and again his whole staff and the captain. Now, this place that they beamed down to, I think it was called Sandy or something like that. I put it up here. But the place that they beamed down to is seemed like an amalgamation of all the relaxation worlds and scenarios that's all through Trek. So they had a little bit of Risa. They had a little bit of the mud pits, the Terrellian mud pits. They had a bit of the holodecks from where you would find, say, on like Quarks, something like that. All right. And they had, of course, the wristbands that tell you by color which state of stress you're in. Now, when everybody beams down, everybody, of course, has orange wristbands, well, yellow, all right? And they have to get relaxed. And the thing is, and I like the way they kind of skimmed over this aspect, but if you guys are familiar with my videos and how I explain the personnel of Starfleet, right? Because there's a lack of money in Star Trek, and in Starfleet, in the Federation and stuff like that, people are able to pursue their dreams, their ambitions, their hobbies become their jobs. All right. So if you think about the engineers all throughout Starfleet, all right, if you think about the engineers, their joy and their stress is both solving problems and identifying and figure out how to deal with problems. And as a person whose job is very similar to engineering and maintenance and mechanics and all that type of things, I get a satisfaction of when I repair something and I see that it works and it goes and does what it does efficiently and safely. All right. So this is a form of stress relief for me to just tinker. And this is what Starfleet engineers do. They've been called that, tinkerers. So what the captain didn't understand is that this was an aspect of the engineering team, because all throughout the relaxation process, the engineers were figuring out ways to bypass all of the methods used to track how they're feeling. They, although they were tired and everything like that, they were still, hey, let's fix this door. It's a problem with this door. Let's fix it. If we're going to draw something, let's draw something interesting. Let's draw the schematic of a circuit. All right. So the captain wasn't understanding that, and that caused her to start questioning her ability to lead, which got her pissed, and her band turned black. Now, I guess in this, man, it's the black band, man. We got to get this woman. It's like an emergency. We got to get her down stat. If we don't, we got to notify Starfleet, which will relieve her of duty and all this stuff. And the chief overhears this, and he goes to tell his engineers, hey, we gotta do something, man. Which is now we have a problem. We have something that we could put our tinkering abilities to in a certain time limit. Okay, we have something to focus on. We can create a solution. And I like the way that they end up handling that situation, because they stay true to who they are, which is something that reduced their stress levels, and they presented a solution that the captain was able to take advantage of. All right. So they built a camaraderie between themselves and a mutual respect of the positions each of them are coming from. And I like the way that they did that, but again, they just skimmed over it just a little bit. Now, back on the ship, back on the ship, we find out that they go through, when I say they, Boimler, Data Chef, Boimler, Tendi, and Mariner, we find out when they finally get to the terminal that they misunderstood the message. It wasn't four rooms on deck one. It was one room on deck four. So, not really thinking it through all the way, they decided, you know what? we don't want to just have one room and it'll split us up and everything like that, and that'll break up our team. So tell you what, why don't we just let them, which is Delta Shift, go in and break up their team? We find out that Delta Shift is a little bit more smarter than Beta Shift, because what they did is that one of them got the room, but then all of them became roommates, and they were able to throw parties and have the privacy and everything that they had, and build up their team more because they are all still together in a better situation. Now, of course, Mariner, she was, like, whatever, but you could tell that she was, like, whatever, her body is, so was Tendy. And when Rutherford finally came back up and found out, he was basically like, what is y'all doing, man? Y'all didn't think about that. We gonna go to that, look, we gonna go to their party, we gonna figure out some kind of way, but y'all bogus for that. So, overall, like I said, it was an okay filler episode for Lower Decks. It was a nice in between, something that keep you sustained. Let you know that Star Trek Lower Decks is still there. Now, some of the Easter eggs, some of the things that I wanted to address in tandem with the episode. Like I said at the beginning, it's nice that they tied in the episode Mask, and they addressed what happens when people put on masks and do these types of things. And that was another thing that they kind of just skimmed over. The psychological effects that come with being possessed, or being in a different body, or being tortured, or tortured, seeing how many lights it was, or being part of being assimilated by the Borg and being set free, or jumping through time and seeing your own death, or being in prison for decades, to come to find out that it was something of memories that they put into your mind. It's all types of things in Star Trek that they kind of that happen, and they don't really, the next episode is kind of like, oh, okay, they cracking jokes, like nothing ever happened. And it's interesting to see how they, at least in this episode, address the psychological effects that come with the repercussions of these missions that they be on. We got to go, not do something that just talk to a counselor, man. We got to go take some time off. We got to go take some mandatory shore leave. We got to go get some type of evaluation to figure out how to cope and deal with these things that's traumatic happening to us in space. You know what I mean? So I'm happy that in this episode they touched on it, but kind of glazed on it, just glazed it a bit. Mariner made a comment about Delta Shift, about that they should drop out or whatever, or join the Marquee. Now, I know that Star Trek Lower Decks takes place chronologically after Voyager. So the only one of two thought processes with me could happen because of that statement. Either whoever wrote that statement didn't know that the Marquee were wiped out in their entirety in the Alpha and Beta quadrants and Gamma quadrants, or that the Marquee was started back up in some way by either Chakotay or Torres. It'll probably be Chakotay. When Voyager got back, he probably started it back up. But that begs to question, what would be the need to, based on the condition of Cardassia and the Cardassians? They would be too concerned with building back up Cardassia, in this time frame, I would think. So that was something that I wanted to, kind of talk about. Now, another thing that they uh, talked about in this episode was when the Klingon was in the holodeck, and it goes directly back to this episode. What was it? With the three Daha Masters, and one of them was in Quark's holodeck, and Quark had to go get Odo because he was scared to end the session. All right, and they said the same thing here. He's way past his time, but nobody's gonna go in there, tell him about it. Now, T'Ana and Shax, we learned a whole lot in this episode about them, did we not, people? Did we not? And look, although funny, right? Having them interact that way, right? And in the situation that they were in, and turning off the holodeck safety protocols so that they could be in pure danger, right? Which turns them on to such a degree to where people could hear them from the holodeck in, you know, the plant place, right? That goes to say a lot about their personalities. Do you know what I mean? Like that's unsafe. That's not unsafe. That's unnatural. No, that's a problem. That's some type of S&M. That's a level of S&M that, when you turn off the holodeck safeties and you have automatic gunfire coming at you and that's turning you on, that's I don't know. I'm gonna have to question. Somebody gonna need to do a psychological evaluation on the chief medical officer. Somebody gonna need to figure that out. But that's kind of nasty right there, Jackson Tahan right there. That's you know, Boimler's and Mariner's lack of O2 trip. All of that was hilarious. That just did. I don't know why it was crazy, but I just got a blast from that. Now, it's good to see Mr. Darmok and Jalad back to Nagra up there doing his thing. I always get a kick out of when I see somebody from that race and him in particular. All right. Now, if you guys notice, one of the engineers down on the planet, the female, she had on a visor, VISOR, and that's a direct throwback to Geordi. But the thing is, I wonder why she doesn't have the upgrade that Geordi has with the regular biometric eyes. All right. So, well, they probably want to have that as a direct throwback. So, what about Tendi and Mariner when they had to take off their clothes to save Boimer from the main navigational deflector situation that he was in? Now, I know it's going to be some parodies that you're going to be able to find on the internet that come up now because of Tendi and Mariner in that particular situation. And there's one thing I wanted to address because they haven't really shown it or talked about it in Lower Decks. She is a Orion female, right? Tendi is an Orion female. Boimer landed in between a half-dressed Orion female and a half-dressed black lady. And he didn't address it at all. He didn't look, he didn't, nothing. And I find that very hard to believe unless she's have some kind of medication or she's one of those Orion females that don't have that particular pheromone. But I'm looking forward to those parodies. Anyway, so um, the thing that I didn't like, but it was realistic. The device that the chief and his engineers made that instantly removes the stress from an individual, right? Their first thought was, when I say the personnel of this facility, their first thought was how much it could help Starfleet personnel if only they had just one of these devices on every Starfleet ship, right? That this would basically put this facility out of business. They would have no further use for this facility, all right? The realistic thing, but the sad thing is, and I didn't like the way that they put this in Star Trek because Star Trek has always tried to present an optimistic view, all right? They decided to bury that technology so that they can keep use of themselves in a facility, which is a very selfish thing to do. It's a very selfish and ignorant thing to do. And I'm very surprised, although, like I said, realistic from today's standpoint, I'm surprised that they put that in a Star Trek um, episode, with no type of um, cleanup or no type of resolution for that particular perspective, So another one of the things that they touched on was when Commander Riker had de-evolved, and I think it was called Genesis. That episode was called Genesis, I think. I might be tripping, but I put it right here. But Ransom basically went through the same thing, and he made a doll, which they had a name for, but it's Deanna Troy, that he still keeps, right? And it's supposed to be some type of primordial connection, which which I guess he plays with churros with it. Now, you could think what you want. Me, I'm a Virgo, so I'm gonna think that he doing something freaky with the churros and this little doll that he has, so I'm hoping that's not the case, man, but Ransom is a bit strange sometimes. So that was this episode, man. Sorry this video went on a little long, man. I hope you guys got a little bit out of the video. Sorry I didn't say spoilers at the beginning, but I'll put that there. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. Peace, recycle, and say the whales. You guys be cool.